Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the 2022 Transforming Education Summit Youth-Led Mobilization Day. We ask that you kindly find your seats at this time. Our program is about to begin. Please find your seats at this time. Our program is about to begin. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats. Our program is about to begin. We ask that you kindly silence all cell phones and devices throughout the program. We welcome you to the 2022 Transforming Education Summit Youth-Led Mobilization Day. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sarah Marley and Brenda Vangova. Please note that photography and video recording of the performance is not permitted.
The conquering lion shall break every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. Give him the victory. Again and again, again and again, give him the victory. Whoa. The conquering lion shall break every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. Give him the victory. Again and again, again and again and again. Give him the victory. Whoa. conquering lion shall break every chain, every chain, every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. Give him the victory. We need the victory. We need the victory again and again and again and again. Give us some victory. Whoa, whoa. Conquering lion shall break every chain, each one of your chains, each one of your chains. The conquering lion shall break every chain. Give us victory again and again, again and again and again. Give us victory, oh. Whoa,
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brenda Vongova, President of the United Nations Chamber Music Society. I hope you enjoyed this performance by Sarah Marley, daughter of the phenomenal artist-musician Ms. Lauryn Hill, and Rohan Marley, son of reggae legend Bob Marley. Sarah is 14 years old and just started her freshman year at Columbia High School in Maplewood, New Jersey. She is a scholar and athlete who loves music, fashion, and all kinds of artistic pursuits that involve inspiring the world towards positive change and authentic connectivity. In 2020, Sarah made her United Nations debut with us by performing in the UN Chamber Music Society's concert and album titled 75 Years of Love in support of the United Nations Refugee Agency. And then again last year for Mandela Day. Thank you, Sarah, for your big heart. It is an honor to be with you all today, the generation of future global leaders. Thank you, Sarah, and all of you for sitting here in this room. You represent our future, and I thank you for helping to make a difference in the world.
Thank you, Sarah Marley and Brenda Vongova, for that beautiful performance. Now, please welcome to the stage your MCs, Cynthia Nyongesa and Peter Franz.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Cynthia Nyongesa. I am a lawyer and a GPE youth leader from Nairobi, Kenya. And we are so excited to see you here today. Welcome, Karibu.
I love the energy in the room. Hi, my name is Peter Franz. I am a student and a board member of the Organizing Bureau of European School Student Unions. I'm also at the advisory committee to this very summit, wherein it is, I believe, to be speaking for the both of us, a huge pleasure to welcome all of you, and I hope we all have a blast today. Thank you.
And so, We are gathered here today celebrating an important moment for young people across the world, and thank you so much for representing them today. This is a moment for us as key stakeholders to come together to chart a new path for education and reimagine the futures of education for generations to come. And we want to trend online. So I'd just like you to take a moment, take your phone, and scan the QR code on the screen. With that, your Twitter app will open. Make sure you customize your post, make it fun. Fun, because we want the whole world to know that we are here. So post on Twitter and make us trend. And the hashtag is Transforming Education Summit. Let's go.
We wouldn't be able to be trending and to spark a social movement in this time without social media. So thank you for these words. I think it is very important because that is today really the way to reach young people. To add to this aside, today is not just about young people and students. Today is, first of all, intergenerational. We are here to discuss with leaders our views and voices and to demand that our voices be not only heard, but most importantly, to be listened to, because to be heard is not enough. Today's program is packed with lots of exciting things, and with that away, shall we begin, Cynthia?
Yes, we should. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes. So for our opening keynote intervention, I am pleased, honored to introduce and welcome to the stage Ms. Meera Dasgupta, the 2020 United States Youth Poet Laureate. Please welcome her with so much applause. Make it warm. Welcome.
Thank you. A caterpillar saunters beneath the sky. Between them is nothing but air and potential, a dream on the cusp of crystallization. As something once grounded learns how to fly. Softly, surely, the wind bears witness to the ache of wings, as a whole world is moments from being realized. When I was younger, books taught me bravery, that words wield power, enough to leave the leaves for the stratosphere. All of the broken ceilings which towered above, like the women leaders I look up to. Still, as we stand here in our privilege, glance across the gaping fissures of this planet, into the roots where youth are left to climb for an education that is their birthright. We must remember that this transformation is but a seed, en route to the next generations, that we are responsible for human lives. Inclusive and accessible schooling, eradicating poverty and violence for those striving to learn without the ever-presence of school shootings, discrimination, and gender barriers. The days spent bracing for the uncertainties of crises means cultivating chrysalises for a girl on the verge of curing cancer. Students finding solutions to climate catastrophe as they consolidate with wildfires and floods. A teacher whose lessons are not limited to lectures but life. Bringing us chairs to tables outside of the classroom, into conversations and negotiations, investing in intersectional ideas, innovation, and young people will always be fundamental to our futures. Because, like a caterpillar, finally taking flight. Though the distance seems far, there is still time for us to relearn, organize, and rise to heights which history has outgrown. A reimagined education becoming a journey to the stars, a home that we collectively strive to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mira, for the powerful performance. Indeed, I think all of us here today would agree that those once grounded will get to fly, and allow me to take this moment just to remind all that Amandla Wetu. I'm pleased to introduce and welcome to the stage Ms. Aisha Khurram, former Afghan youth representative to the United Nations. Thank you.
Every 2 seconds, someone is forced to flee their home, to escape war, persecution, or natural disaster. 1, 2. In these 2 seconds, someone's life is changed forever. And so was mine when I had to leave my homeland after the Taliban takeover. I fled a country where today, in the 21st century, girls are not allowed to go to school, where being a woman can cost you a lifetime of knowledge, growth, and opportunity. Access to education was never easy for women in Afghanistan. But even after leaving, I never imagined that I would have to fight my way back into class. Because today, only 5% out of 100 million refugees have the right to higher education. And this is a huge gap. We are living in a rapidly, drastically transforming world with new challenges emerging every second of every day. And yet, 77 years after the establishment of United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we are still failing to meet the very basic educational goals for refugees. And yet, we are failing to transform in our solutions to one of the most urgent global crises, the crisis in education. Using the lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, it's time to turn a new page in the history and revolutionize the global educational system by embracing technology, by globalizing the certification mechanism, and by tearing down the physical barriers to education. Because this is the humanitarian necessity of our time. Young people should not and cannot wait for humanitarian crisis to be resolved to access education. They should not waste the best years of their lives in refugee camps and wait for being recognized to access education. Today, the refugee crisis might be the portrait of everything gone wrong with our international community. But there is a rare chance for us and for the world to absolve itself of the great liability of history. So as you discuss today how to draft and map the global education policy, I urge you to make sure you do your part to create a world where there is no longer any border to education for refugees. Because educational crisis is an emergency. And today, more than ever before, it should be treated as one. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha, so much for those words of power, of truth, of wisdom, and of bravery. I'm pleased to introduce and welcome to the stage Mr. Jeremiah Taronka, 2021 a recipient of the Global Student Prize, and I would urge you all to give him a warm Round of applause.
All protocols duly observed. I am Jerima Thonka from Sierra Leone. A few months ago, at the UNESCO headquarters, I was the laureate of the inaugural Global Student Prize, a $100,000 prize given to students who have demonstrated extreme academic excellence, as well as having a huge impact on their society and beyond. It is great. However, a lot goes into what I have become and what I'll become in the future. In fact, back in 2000, I was in the arm of a displaced single mother, not understanding the meaning of climate change, in a community many may have written off amidst the Sierra Leone Civil War. Post the war years, I continued my formative years in that particular setting, with frequent climate impact and vulnerability, socio-economic issues, and more importantly, the burning desire to create a safe space where my mother, my peers, and myself will flourish. That motivation, strong passion, sense of purpose, and interest was not enough. I needed quality education. I needed to access that quality education to sustain that passion, the sense of purpose and motivation. Luckily, I got that in Sierra Leone, Rwanda, and recently the UK. Scholarships and aids from the Rotary Club of Freetown, the African Leadership Financing Company, and the Commonwealth made me acquire those skills in St. Edward Secondary School, a bachelor's degree in global challenges from the African Leadership University, and more recently, a master's of science degree in sustainability, energy, and development as a Commonwealth scholar. Today, I'm proud to say I'm a leading innovator, scholar, and entrepreneur who continue hands-on. Today, I am a leading innovator, scholar, and entrepreneur who continue hands-on to bridge the gap between the classroom and the real world. I use the skills that I've learned in the classroom. For example, when I was in high school, I started exploring the possibility of developing systems that can absorb energy, kinetic energy from moving objects, animals, or any other moving object, in making energy accessible to energy-deprived communities. In addition, when I enrolled at the African Leadership University, I also started thinking on how I can use a micro-socio-economic and cultural approach in promoting energy efficiency to some of those communities. All those will not have been possible without accessing quality education. And more recently, during my master's program, I started gaining interest on how we can work with young people, deprived communities, on how they can take ownership of their problems using indigenous knowledge as a solid tool to solve their most pressing challenges. I have used every concept and skill I have learned in the classroom to build something great that benefits my community, my country, and Africa strive to become climate resilient. This all may sound extraordinary, but all of us in this room can become innovators if only access to quality education is made accessible to wherever we find ourselves around the world. I am a testament that it works. It can bring significant change to our country and the world. Then this is the question. If it works, why aren't we doing it already? Why do we fear investing more in education? I tell you all in here today, we have to be more terrified of not doing so. If we genuinely want to instigate a holistic sustainable development, fight climate change, bridge inequality, and promote peace and a truly safe, prosperous, and just world, we must invest, prioritize, and make quality education accessible to everybody around the world. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Are you feeling the same way? Really? So from our speakers, I think I'm getting a couple of keywords: innovation, inclusivity, transformation, peace, equality. I mean, think of all those words and keep tweeting. What a powerful way to open the day today. And thank you so much to all our inspiring speakers for your messages and calls to action to transform education.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, everybody. Now, folks, we do have to clear something out. It is no mistake that the next panel, which is called a power panel, is being led and moderated by an equally powerful young voice. It is very much not on accident. This person, whom we would like to invite to the stage, we would like to, along with our esteemed panel, of course, welcome on stage Ms. Kanisha Aurora, SDG for Youth Representative on the Education 2030 High-Level Steering Committee. Oh, hi there.
Hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure for me to ask you all to join me in welcoming Ms. Amina Mohammed and the President of the 77th UN General Assembly. Thank you to our Director Secretary General of the United Nations for her endless commitment to youth voices and our new President-elected for the UN General Assembly. Please give them another round of applause. This Transforming Education Summit is not only a big moment for youth leaders and advocates like me, but even the young people who we've left behind. It's a big day for the 635 million children who were stripped of education during COVID-19. It's a big day for the 1 in 3 children who are bullied in the classrooms, the 46,000 students who suicide because of the lack of mental health support, and the 27.9 million children who are refugees and fighting to enter the dorms of the classroom, which is why it's an absolute pleasure to be in this esteemed panel as we discuss the future of education for children like us. I would like to start off by asking Ms. Mohammed, what does this Youth Day symbolize to you? We're all passionate and here today. What does really your aspirations for today and this Youth Mobilization Day?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, these are 3 hard acts to follow that we just heard this morning. But for one, youth in the room. I've never seen so many people in one room. I wish it would be the same for all our PRs and our delegations. But what I would like to see as well is they make noise and that they clap. If you've been in here, you will have a speech and it'll be completely silent. You won't know how it landed. So excuse us if we're a little out of touch because this is intimidating. For me, transformation really is about what we're going to do in the life of every single person that has a right to an education, a right to learning, from where it all starts, the day that we're born, and the ability for us to connect with learning, connect with our environments, and connect with the teachers that will help us. And today's the new teachers, a teacher that will accompany us, because as we heard, the digital era is here. It's not going away, but we need to use it and leverage it and make sure it's very much a part of our learning. And that learning is important, what goes into a curriculum, how that really does empower a person to be the best of themselves, to communicate and to be the best of a society and lead in a society. We heard from Mira, we heard from Aisha and also Jeremiah how important it is. One, that we are having roots and wings to fly, and those roots are about our identity, our culture, our to be who we are. But the second is the education, and without that you cannot fly, and we heard Jeremiah tell us how high he's intending to go. But more importantly, education transformation means that we leave absolutely no one behind. And Aisha spoke to that. And we must never forget those that have not had the opportunity because of the context, the oppression, the wars, the conflicts, the humanitarian settings that they're in. These humanitarian settings often are not a couple of weeks. They could be your whole life. And that excludes many, many from education. You just spoke to the challenges that we've had post-COVID, but right now there are millions of children wondering what's going to happen to them in Pakistan. That's a climate event. So transformation in the sense of the context that we are in, the crisis that we face, and the future that we would all like to see.
Thank you for those inspiring words. We must not leave anyone behind. And as we are here today in the UN General Assembly, I would love to ask you, Mr. Karosi, what really is your vision for education? We talk about global disruptions being taken place, and really we find that solutions is in education. And I even talked about it before. By education, a book can really become a dream, a pen can become a policy, and a microscope can become the cure for cancer. But as we're here today, talking about the 2030 agenda, what is really education as a solution, and how do young people kind of fit in that role?
Thank you much, Kanisha, and many, many thanks to all of you who brought together this wonderful event. It's so cheerful and so inspiring to hear your voice. It's so inspiring to hear, to feel the energy that is filling this room. The most common words what I heard this morning were transformation, future, inclusion, hope, energy. And it's all the contradiction to what you've just mentioned, Kanisha, global disruption. That's something what we don't want to accept. When nowadays we start political speeches, we usually start with very dark words, unfortunately, because it is the description of the reality in the world. Unsustainable development, climate change, wars. But you know what is wrong in this world. There is no need to explain it to you. You yourself are fighting to be heard and to go for a change. Carry on. Ask you and congratulate you what you have done so far. Since we already know what are the problems, let's see what are the solutions. The solutions which will take us all ahead. Solutions that will determine your future and our presence as well. You know from your first-hand information what the pandemic brought to us. It was a postcard from the future. Let's take it very seriously. It was much more than a pandemic. It was much more than a virus. It has overloaded our healthcare systems. It disrupted supply chains. It sent our economies nosediving. It caused crisis on our labor markets, skyrocketed deficits, and interrupted the growth of public trust. And what is very important for this gathering today, it disrupted education. So I'm afraid it was a prototype of the Anthropocene era crisis, what we don't want. It's a future what we don't want. So what is the future we want? We have this vision. We have this shared vision. We expressed it in many ways. Let's take just the Sustainable Development Goals. What you know so well, and I saw some signs this morning around this hall as well. The SDGs, as we call it in abbreviation, will come to halfway of implementation later this year. I mean, during next year, but we in the General Assembly count time in different terms. It is very important that we give a very honest account to ourselves. What has been achieved and what has not been achieved. What is the secret of success and what is the cause of the lack of success? It is a time of honesty. Someone mentioned the name Bob Marley, and I was very, very happy to hear his granddaughter, this morning. You remember one of his poems, "Come together and make it work." We can make it work with you. Climate emergency was also mentioned this morning. It is one of the greatest challenges we can have on this earth now. And you know that climate action will not shift without education. Those buzzwords are very well known to all of us. UNFCCC, IPCC, Paris Agreement action, education development program, and so on. We all know these are very clever, very well-constructed reports, documents, suggestions. But let me take the final lesson out of it from point of education. All these platforms, all these suggestions indicate that we have to teach you about climate change, and you have to teach us about how to galvanize momentum. None of them can be missing from the equation. We need you to make a change. I heard the very powerful words of Aisha Quran this morning. It's important to include everybody. We need everybody on board. We cannot allow injustice to a significant part of humankind, and we cannot afford to lose the talent of half of the humankind. So I'm inviting you to the decision-shaping table. Be brave, be bold, be provocative. Just keep in mind that while being provocative, which is very much needed, think in terms of interconnected challenges, because the world you are going to take over is full of interconnected challenges. Last but not least, never forget the words of Albert Schweitzer. You are as young as your hopes, as old as your doubts, as young as your confidence, as old as your fears, young like your faith, and old like your despair. There is no time for despair now. It is the time of faith, and it is a time of transformative action. It is a time that you come to us. Let's act together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karosi. Absolutely. It is our time to act now. And as we think about youth standing in solidarity, we saw that we had engaged with over 500,000 young people from over 170 countries in the consultations that we had for the Youth Declaration, which will be launched today. It is so inspiring to see that many young people have the hopes and vision that you so passionately speak about. But Ms. Mohammed, as we think about how can we engage youth, how can youth actually make an impact, what are things that come to your mind? You know, my friend Seema, she's a child bride in India, and for her, education is only a hope. For Zhangxi in China, he spends 2 hours walking to go to school. How can these young people transform education not only for themselves, but also their peers?
Thank you. Well, you know, first of all, this summit is a really good place to move that action. We need a movement in the world that puts education up front and center, moving it from the rhetoric of it's the cornerstone, without it you can't do this, and all the things that we say and we acknowledge, but there's no fuel for it. That needs mobilization. That needs voices amplified. That needs you to use your power, your voice, to help those governments that are trying and to move those that are not. And I think that today what we are seeing is that solidarity where it should be, it's certainly in this room, we can feel it, but where it should be, where actions should come behind the investments and the resources that are needed for education, it's on vacation. Where we need leadership to lead on this agenda, particularly education, for me personally, a head of state and government's first commitment to his people, her people, is their security, but the second one is education. And for those leaders that don't know it, you need a movement that makes certain that they do and that they don't wake up or go to sleep without having done something about education. So it's your voice, it's the movements you create, it's the activism in us all that, by the way, is not part-time. For those of us that have been activists and you think that it's sacrifice, it's for your whole life. We never give up because there is always a gap between what is and what needs to be. But we need to give hope, and that hope only comes with voice and with the actions. I think the President of the General Assembly said it well. We can provide the science and the knowledge that will make for certain for sure that we know climate change is real. But the climate actions, that's you. And those actions, to move those actions, it's your voice, it's your movement. So for me, it's about the movement, it's about the activation. It started a long time before today in the Education Summit. But this summit allows you to make as much noise, engage, really speak to leaders that you will be in the same room with, and make sure they take out homework. Make sure they go back to their countries where you'll be waiting. And there'll be more voices at the country level. And what the UN can do is to convene strange bedfellows in one room who would never ordinarily be in that room to work for education.
Absolutely. The work only begins here, and especially the global movement for the education specifically. And as Mr. Carosi mentioned, it's time for us young people to start pulling up the chair to sit at these decision-making tables. And as we think about, what happens after the UN General Assembly, what are your aspirations for after we've started this global movement? How can young people continue to ask their decision-making leaders to be included, not only heard, but engaged in the implementation of actually finding solutions to transform education?
You don't even have to ask. Buy your tickets and come. After general debate, I'm planning to launch a series of consultations, inviting people of science, the young, the youth, the representative of faith-based organizations and the civil society on a very regular basis to listen on very complicated questions, to listen to their opinions, listen to their suggestions and solutions, and not in order just to ventilate some good ideas, but to make sure that those good ideas, suggestions, will be taken into a kind of system and will be offered for the consideration of the membership, of the member states. Be bold, be loud, and be at the table. I'm waiting for you.
Thank you so much. You heard it here first. Be bold and pull up the chair. We don't need to ask. And today, I hope that all of us young people take the learnings that we're going to be listening to from our member states, partners, take the opportunity to connect with everyone, to actually build out solutions. We have the voice, we have the passion. Let's start acting. Now is our time. Thank you. And a very big thank you to our esteemed panel, Ms. Amina Mohammed and the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you.
Indeed, it is our time, our turn, our future. Could you say that? Our time? No, louder. Our time, our turn, our future. Thank you so much, Kenisha, and the incredible panel. That was just amazing. And so, our next segment will deal with the intergenerational dialogues. Young people at the center of transforming education. And just to let you know that indeed there are young people across the world who are doing incredible things, and I actually amplify these stories. So these dialogues will feature conversations between young people and political leaders on enabling participatory dialogues to transform education. And now, I'd like to welcome on stage our keynote speaker, Rebecca Winthrop. She is the Senior Fellow and Director of the Center for Universal Education at the Brookings Institution, to set the stage for the discussion.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to be here. I started out as a high school youth activist for climate change education, and I have to say, I agree with the DSG. For those of us who have been doing it a long time, one can get dispirited because there's a lot of bad things in the world, but not in this room. There is hope in this room. So thank you. Thank you so much. So briefly, I think the reason I am here is because I am a researcher, and I've been researching systems transformation in education for some time. Our center, for those of you who don't know, at the Brookings Institution works with about 100 countries around the globe, 100 partners around the globe in about 40 countries. And my main message for you today is that intergenerational dialogue that is inclusive, is broad, includes young people, includes teachers, includes families, includes employers, includes government leaders, is not a nice to have, icing on the cake. It is the cake itself. It is absolutely core to being able to transform systems. And I'm really not saying that to be nice and because I've been invited here. It's actually what the evidence says. We have done a lot of work looking at many decades of experiments where education systems have tried to transform big ideas. They want change to happen. And there's a range of barriers that stop them. And one of the main barriers is not having broad, inclusive dialogue. I'm very proud to the Sierra Leonean delegation in the audience that I worked in partnership with the Sierra Leonean Ministry of Education to produce this piece of evidence, Transforming Education Systems, What, Why, and How. And really the main takeaway is that there are 3 broad steps you need to do to transform any system, particularly education systems. The first is get a shared vision of purpose. That is the first P. And we were going to hear from ministers in a minute who tried to transform education and then ran into problems and had to go back and do the intergenerational dialogue process in order for it to move forward. You need a society-wide agreement on what is the goal of education anyway. What are we doing here? And once you have that, you can go in, second P, pedagogy, go in and change how, redesign the teaching and learning process so you can make sure that young people and students can reach those goals, that purpose. And then the third P is to align the whole parts of your system, your education system, behind that goal. So intergenerational dialogue is key for the first P. There's no way around it. And for those of us who have been studying system transformation for a long time, DSG, you talk about decolonizing education systems. He wouldn't call it this way, but the Brazilian educationalist Paulo Freire, who's been doing one of the deepest thinkers amongst many others, says if the structure does not permit dialogue, the structure must be changed. So this is really a key message for you. And luckily, what we have, I'm thrilled to announce something we can do about it. The big education conversation. You are going to see people later today with these hats around. So what is the big education conversation? I'm thrilled to launch it today on behalf of all of our partners. It's a global initiative to get people talking about what education is actually for and how it can change in the future. It comes out of research that we've been piloting at Brookings across the world, and then the charity in the UK, Big Change, they're at the back over there, drew on this research and did the first national, in England, big education conversation, and we're taking it global today. We have 10 partners in civil society and government. So in Australia, the Civil Society Partner Learning Creates Australia, Brazil, Voces de Educao, Canada, People for Education, Colombia, Red Papa, England, I already talked about Big Change, India, Dream a Dream, Kenya, Zizi Afrique, the United States, Remake Learning, Uruguay, Educate, Zanzibar, Malele Zanzibar Foundation, and I would be remiss not to thank the DSG and the CEO, Amber Geet, of the LEGO Foundation for their strategic insight and guidance to say this is an important thing for the Transforming Ed Summit. So thank you, both of you. Yes. I also would be remiss before I show you a bit more how you can get engaged in the big education conversation to not give a shout out to our tech partners, Salesforce, Tableau, and Brilliant Associates who've been working around the clock. So what is it? What do you do? 3 things. We have a survey that you can take online or offline that is intergenerational. Young people need to take it, teachers need to take it, families need to take it, community members need to take it, that really gets you talking about what is the purpose, when are you most satisfied, what's our vision of education. Then you need to host a conversation. You could do this with your friends at home. You could do it with your family. You could do it across an entire school district. It can be any size. And then out of that conversation, you should share what you're saying on the big education conversation website, but most importantly, you should identify action steps to take. I'm gonna give you a little flavor. We did this in Ghana. And this was the survey findings. And we found that students who are here in bubbles in the pink, which it might be a little hard to see here, but students said out of the 4 main purposes most school systems have in education, which are give students academic skills so they can go on to higher education, that's one purpose. Give students citizenship skills so they can contribute to their communities and countries. Give students employment skills so they can go on and get good jobs. And help students develop their own lifelong learning, social-emotional learning skills so they can chart the course themselves. The #1 things that students in Ghana wanted was job skills, economic and socio-emotional, their own lifelong learning skills. And then we see, well, what do teachers want? Students in Ghana were very surprised to see that actually almost 60% of teachers thought the most important purpose of education was social-emotional learning. Students thought it was actually, teachers thought it would, they thought only teachers cared about academics. So that's a big source of conversation. You can overlay parents. Parents actually prefer civic and academic a bit more. You can go on also to see, do students, what do they think is the most important purpose of school and what are they most satisfied in their current schooling experience? So the vision of the future and where is the gap with what they're experiencing today? Students in Ghana say, I want the purpose to be social-emotional and jobs, but I have to make sure that I get good academic scores. So all of those raise big questions. And you have to have a dialogue between all of these stakeholders to really get to the main purpose of education. So we're asking all of you today to get the QR code, take the survey. You will not identify your country until there are 50 people who've taken the survey. You will not see yourself visualized. So you are the first ones. Please. Take it, spread it, share it, and begin a big education conversation. We will have, at 5:30, here in this room, a big education conversation led by a team of people from Big Change and others. So with that, I have 2 final reflections. First reflection is for the young people in this room. One of the things I have learned on my journey is the wisdom of praxis. This is Paulo Freire and many others, which is together reflection, which is often talked about as knowledge, and dialogue, has to go hand in hand with action. That is the only way you can act in the world to transform things. One without the other doesn't work. Reflection and dialogue and talking with no action doesn't transform things. But so too does action without knowledge and reflection. They must go hand in hand. And lastly, for the adults in this room, I want to share, not from my voice, but I'm in the process of writing a book with my co-author, Jenny Anderson, and from one of the young people who's engaged with us in that book. Adults do not need to give young people a voice. They already have one. You just need to listen to it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca, for those powerful words. At this day and age, it is not enough to merely mobilize the masses. One has to also mobilize the scientific inquiry and academia. And I'm glad that is something you highlighted. I'm also glad you brought up Paulo Freire, who in terms of engaging young people in activism said that if those people with power engage people who don't have this power, they are treating them as if they were pieces of furniture to be saved from a burning building. That's Paulo Freire, pedagogy of the oppressed. Now, allow me to ask the young people in this room, do you feel like pieces of furniture? The answer is no, just to be perfectly clear, okay? Do you feel like pieces of furniture to be saved from a burning building? Let me hear that one more time. Precisely. We are the ones who save ourselves in terms of dialogue and in terms of convening in conversation with those in power. On that note, I would like now to introduce the EU Commissioner for International Partnership, Her Excellency Jutta Urpilainen, who will share a few thoughts on meaningfully engaging youth in transforming education, as we have just talked about. Unfortunately, she cannot be here in person, but I would advise you to turn your attention to the screen. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. This really is a great moment. We all act towards the same important goal: to reimagine education, to put SDG 4 back on track, to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Let me make one important distinction. We cannot improve education for youth. We need to do it with youth. You are the largest generation of young people in history. You must have your say on how to transform education for students, teachers, and beyond. It starts right here with the Youth Declaration. Friends, the EU is stepping it up for education around the world. Last year, I decided to increase funding to education from 7% to at least 10% globally and in our partner countries. And I call others to join this push. We also created the first youth sounding board for international partnerships. 25 young people from around the world will ensure our international partnerships work is youth approved. Some of them are even here today. As you might know, 2022 is also the European Year of Youth. In a few weeks' time, we will be launching the first Youth Action Plan in External Action. It will reflect the recommendations of your Youth Declaration. From fostering youth leadership to ensuring inclusiveness and promoting global citizenship education. Dear friends, the Transforming Education Summit is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is our opportunity to create the transform that young people want, need, and deserve.
And after these powerful words, I'd like to welcome our first youth moderator for the first panel, Armel Azejar, the TES Youth Advisor. I would like to invite her to the stage. Oh, there she goes, there she goes. Hi, Armel. Now, before handing it off to you, I'm confident many of you have been called upon by your governments, private sector, the UN, and other partners to contribute to different kinds of dialogues. But what are the best practices to contribute in policy making, program design, and implementation? Now, that is something that Armel will tap into. So with that being said, take it away.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Hello, everyone. No, that's not the vibe that I want to see in the room. Hello, everyone. Okay. Thank you very much. Without further ado, allow us to start our session on good practices in youth engagement. As we are talking about transforming education, we should also focus on how we are really going to transform it, what are the perspective and the aspect and the different practices. So for that, allow me to welcome on stage our distinguished speakers. His Excellency Ms. Mariatou Kone, Minister of Education of Côte d'Ivoire. Oh, okay. His Excellency Mr. João Marques da Costa, Minister of Education of Portugal. And His Excellency Miss Maria Brown Perez, Minister of Education of Ecuador. And also our youth leaders, Miss Sibah Yasmin Mirel, youth leaders of Côte d'Ivoire, and Miss Maria Francisca Coelho, youth leaders from Portugal. Welcome on stage. Where is our youth leaders? Because this is the youth-led mobilization. We cannot start the session without our youth leaders. Okay. Okay, have a seat, please. All right, thank you very much. And we are going to start our part one session on good practices in youth engagement. And I just have one question for all of you ministers. Dear ministers, you have all shown leadership in your, okay, sorry. Please, everyone, give us a second. There is some technical issues. Yeah, they're fixing it. It's working. I just heard it. Hello, everyone. Please, we are having some technical issues. Don't leave the room. We are going to start in a few minutes. Please bear with us and stay seated. We are going to start in a few minutes. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's me again. Hello. We are going to start in a few minutes. Please stay seated. And we are sorry for the inconvenience. Please stay seated, and thank you very much for your presence. We are going to start in a few minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, and sorry for the inconvenience. We are going now to start our session. our distinguished speakers, thank you very much for joining us on stage. We are now going to start with our Ministers of Education, which is really an honor for us to have you here with us and discuss about education. Dear Ministers, I only have one question for all of you. You have all shown leadership in your respective countries in engaging youth in education policy. Can you please tell us how you have achieved that? Over to you, Maria.
Hi, hello, I'm Maria. I'm Education Minister for Ecuador, a South American country. It's a small country of 18 million people, 4.3 million students. I would like to share one experience that we recently launched. Pretty much what we heard before in the last speaker's intervention about engaging youth in conversation of what they want for education, what they need for education, and what we can do as leaders in order to engage in education, also youth. I was young very recently. I try to think I'm still young. So I think it helps having a young minister, right? I'm 39. I turned 39 recently. I've been minister for a little bit more than a year. I'm not qualified as youth, but I was there just a few years ago. So I think I can still get, you know, what youth wants. And we've also achieved, so giving youth the opportunity, or young people the opportunity to be in policy-making positions is important. Youth can be in these positions and make good decisions. Sometimes people think that you need a lot of experience to be able to be seated at the table and making a contribution in policy making, and this is not true. You can be a policymaker as well as youth. Not only intervene or talk with policymakers, but become policymakers. So that I'll say it's one good lesson and good practice that we've implemented. Another one is that recently we launched a survey around the futures of education process that UNESCO launched globally. And in Ecuador, we had 2 surveys answered by the first one by more than 4,000 people, and the second one more than that, a little bit more than that. In total, 731,000 people answered. And we had 2 parallel surveys for adults and for youth and children. So it's pretty much a big conversation on education that happened in Ecuador. The first one was just at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, and the second one was in 2022. And what people answered to the survey has informed us to make the transformation of curriculum, and we're doing also as well an integral transformation of the education system, in which we've favored in the curriculum what youth wants education to be for them. So what they want, the main answers, when we ask them what's the main challenge that you think the planet is facing and that education should see, the first most common answer was the environment. So we all agree that education for sustainable development should be paramount in the education system, and this is common to many countries in the world, and in both surveys the main answer was the same. The second one was poverty. Even though we were in the pandemic, only the third one was strange or odd illnesses or a pandemic. So people understood that the environment and the coexistence with the environment is the most important thing that education should address at this point in humanity's existence. The second one is, we asked them, how would you like your educational institution to be, your school to be? And they answered, a place where everyone is respected. Everyone is respected. So the second thing that we have to prioritize in our curriculum is global citizenship, and also coexistence and peaceful ways of coexistence, and trying to reach agreements within the school systems as well. And what's the main, we asked, what's the main function of the educational institution? And the main answer was providing opportunities for people to become better, responsible citizens. And the second one, develop creativity and prepare us to discover things. So I wanted to share these results. And also regionally, in Ecuador, we right now are part of the steering committee, the regional steering committee for SDG 4. Together with Chile, we are the two countries for South America. And the decision that the Latin American and the Caribbean countries made recently in our last ministerial meeting, some of my colleagues are here, hello ministers, was that we included in the steering committee a youth organization. Because we believe also, not only nationally, we should include youth in decision making, but also regionally, we should include youth in decision making, and globally. So these are the three that I wanted to initially share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. Thank you very much, His Excellency, for those words and for sharing those good practices that you are doing in Ecuador, for showing that intergenerational solidarity work is feasible and young people have their seat on the decision-making table. And also for showing that transforming education, we also need to transform our curriculum and align it with the world we are living in today. Thank you very much for those good practices. Now I will hand the floor to His Excellency, Minister of Education of Portugal.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm a bit older, so yesterday I was not a young person, but I still remember. And for that reason, it's very easy to engage young people in the process of curriculum reform that we've been designing in Portugal. Let me start with the first concern we had. When we meet and talk about education, when we write pieces of legislation about education, there's lots of rhetorics. There's lots of beautiful words about students at the center. This is all about the youth. This is all about the students. But then there's the practice. It's all about the student, but we don't listen to the student. And this is a very clear contradiction in what we've been doing for decades, or for centuries maybe, in education. We want it to be about the students, but then you say, you are a good student if you are very quiet and if you're very silent in class. This cannot be the truth. This cannot be the way to go. So with this in mind, we in Portugal, before I go to the how, let me go to the why. Why did we want to engage the students in the process of writing the legislation and the curriculum reform? We had three major goals in this curriculum reform: to promote better learning, to promote inclusion and equity, to promote citizenship. These are the three pillars of our policy, educational policy in Portugal right now. And you cannot define what good learning is about without asking the students, how do you learn? And this was the first question we asked. How do you learn? What makes you learn? What makes you want to learn? And the responses we got were amazing. The students told the whole country, we need more project-based learning. We need more motivation to be in school. We need to see the relevance of the theory we learn in relation with the problems that we are experiencing, like the ones that Maria mentioned. Then the second point, we are concerned about equity. Equity is about the curriculum. Equity is about access to the curriculum. It's not about having some separate classes or separate spaces. It's about access to the curriculum. So we need to talk to the students, not only to the privileged ones, but we need especially to talk to those students who are not able to learn, who are at risk of dropping out of school, and ask them, why are you not learning? Why don't you feel good in school? And the questions we got, the answers we got were extraordinary. In the first assembly of students that we made, after hearing students all over the country, they told us what we need for better learning is people smiling at us when we enter the classroom and we enter the school. And this is very cheap. For a government, this is good. And then about citizenship. Like in Ecuador, our students told us, and we were very committed already with having the whole body of the SDGs in our curriculum. We cannot say that we're worried about climate changes and not addressing it in school, or taking it as a bunch of opinions and not as a bunch of evidence that we are experiencing right now. But citizenship, and this is at the core of our curriculum, is also about human rights. And human rights is about empathy. It's about listening to the other. It's about interculturality. And this cannot be done if you are sentenced to silence in school. So what we did and what we've been doing, we had some old experiences with already 25 years, like the Youth Parliament. Students from all the country go to the Parliament, do assemblies in the schools, and they have a national event, a week in the Parliament, discussing proposals that they present to the MPs and that they are discussed also with the government. But we wanted to go beyond just events, and we wanted to actually change the practices in schools. So with their input, we added in the law on curriculum that schools have to create regular instances to hear the students about the curricular options. And this is happening. There's lots of student voice initiatives in the schools. We have a participatory budget in the schools that is a part of the budget for schools is decided by the students alone, only based on their proposals. And we even have some schools in which there is a deputy principal who is a student, elected by the others. So they sit at the table of the decisions at the local level and also at the national level, because we created also in my cabinet these regular instances for listening to the students. Two final messages. One concern we still have is that student voice cannot be an event, cannot be a summit in New York in 2 days in which we all say beautiful words about student voice. It has to be a daily practice, a daily routine, something that is fully embodied in the practices in classes and in schools and in our lives as legislators. And the other and the final message is that when we listen to students, we are humanizing school. Schools are, and education is about humanizing individuals, turning persons into individuals. And otherwise, what we are going to keep doing is to engage in this blunt speech of meritocracy, and we are only looking at the privileged ones, repeating privilege, and not giving the voice and listening to the voice of those that should be at the core of our attention, those who depend only on education systems in order to aim for a better life. So listening to their voices is listening to humanity and humanizing education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency João da Costa, for showing those inclusive youth engagement, for not only having young people in the room, but also giving them the power to lead and engage. And also for walking the talk, because it's not about us coming here and give an example, but we have also to leave this room and walk the talk. So thank you very much for those good practices. Now over to you, His Excellency Ms. Mariatou Kone.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Mariatou Kone, Minister of National Education of Côte d'Ivoire, and I'm a member of the steering committee, the SDG4 for Francophone Africa. I would like to say that in Côte d'Ivoire, with COVID, all of the problems that resulted from that, Côte d'Ivoire decided to rethink its education, beginning a national consultation that we called the National Conference on National Education and Literacy. So these were very inclusive consultations and especially participatory conversations, because we didn't want to leave anybody behind, especially young people from the future generations, the adults of tomorrow, In Côte d'Ivoire, more than 70% of the population is under the age of 35. And so that's a very crucial question for us. And we understood that we had to transform our education, create hope, and we understood that we had to take into account the aspirations and the needs of young people. And so they were involved. They were involved in the National Conference on National Education that lasted about 10 months. They were involved at every stage. They were involved in every region of the country. From the bottom to the top, they were involved as well via a platform, a digital platform, in case some people would not have the time to get involved in the regions. And so you understand that for us, this national conference on education was designed by and for young people. We listened to them in order to be able to act better as decision makers. We, through that national conference, there were really great moments. There were moments of intergenerational dialogue, because sometimes we had the impression that the young people and elderly people had different positions, but we listened to them in order to be able to better act coming out of the national conference on national education. We understood that it was important. It was important to reform education, taking into account certain aspirations and needs of the young people that came out in the consultations, and especially the speed of technological change, because we saw that young people today in Côte d'Ivoire, they have a multitude of ways of learning, but their contribution is not really valued. And so we understood as well that we had to reform education and teaching by taking into account the promotion of science and technology and innovation, but also transform, bearing in mind the most appropriate measures in order to solve the problems that emerge at the level of the climate, the school environment, citizenship. We talk about the new Ivorian. What do the young people think we should do to have a new Côte d'Ivoire? With respect to our experience, well, with the involvement of young people, we have a survey underway with young people to assess their level of satisfaction with a view to adjusting or readjusting the measures that have been defined that came out of the recommendations of this national consultation. And we also set up a system where one of the moderators is here. It was she represents the point of view of youth and the work that we're doing. And with youth, we chose to co-build a social pact around Ivorian education to improve our system. I'm going to stop there, and I'm ready to ask questions if there are any after. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister, for sharing those good practices in Côte d'Ivoire, specifically on transforming curricula and including young people on the process. This has really shown that young people are heard and are also considered. Thank you very much, ministers. It was good to hear from you all. Now I'm going to pass the floor to our amazing youth leaders. You have all heard what our ministers are doing. So now I wanted to hear from you as a young people, like in your experience, what are you doing in engaging your respective governments to influence education policies in your countries? Over to you.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes.
Good morning, one and all. My name is Yasmine Siai, and I represent young people from Côte d'Ivoire today. Young people are involved in the decision-making process for the future of education in Côte d'Ivoire. In Côte d'Ivoire, we have school councils. School councils bring together all pupils from a particular school. And what they do, there is a chairperson who's also an elected pupil who bridges the gap between the students and the school leadership, the staff, so that the school and the administration communicate better. We also have a youth parliament in Côte d'Ivoire. The youth parliament in Côte d'Ivoire puts forward solutions to improve education in Côte d'Ivoire. We had a youth report. This is something that's been set up. And that is a place where young people can put questions and try and see what proposals there are to improve the situation. And then the Ministry of Education looks at all these proposals. We also have the National Council of Young People of Côte d'Ivoire. There's an education committee within that. That's also headed up by young people. The Education Committee takes in consideration the proposals that are made by all youth organizations, and they are made available to young people, or rather to the Ministry of Education. In Côte d'Ivoire, young people are involved in the entire process. They have been since the summit was announced. A committee that is very inclusive was set up. It was set up to prepare for the summit. Young people were represented right from the start. Young people were involved in the pre-summit preparations. Young people in Côte d'Ivoire are really involved, and this shows how the Côte d'Ivoire authorities involve young people in education. Young people have shown that education is of interest to them, because what we say is everything that is done for us but without us is against us. So what is important is that our opinions are taken into consideration in order to improve education. What we want as young people is to be involved in follow-up to the decisions that are taken at this summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much for showing all the way that you are doing in Côte d'Ivoire in engaging ministers and government to help young people, and specifically on using your voices on the different advisor group and committee that you are part of. Just quoted what you say, and which I really like, saying that what is done without us, it's really against us. And so if we really want to transform education, we should all call us and we come together and decide for what we want. Thank you. Now I'll give the floor to Maria.
Good morning. My name is Maria. I'm 15 years old and I'm a high schooler. So first of all, it is an honor to be here today along with my country's Minister of Education representing Portugal, of course. This is such a remarkable moment in my life that I would like to ask you if you wanted to take a selfie with me. Is that okay? Yes? Is that okay? Okay. I want big smiles, okay? Big smiles. Okay. Let's go. Woo! Nice, amazing. You're so beautiful, all of you. Okay, so, okay. Now, anyway, so the best ways for us Portuguese students to help the government change and transform education are, in fact, to be engaged with our own education and, as change makers, make our voices heard, which is exactly what happens in my school, where class and students' assemblies take place systematically for us to discuss all the things that have to do with our own learning path and how we want to learn, where we get to make our own decisions. So it is up to us to decide what projects we develop within the classroom in which climate change and sustainability are almost always the main focus. We're the ones who contact the enterprises and universities so they can validate our ideas scientifically. And we are also the ones who do the experiments, who do new experiments and create and produce and develop new products who can reduce pollution with the help of our partnerships, who can show us the results of our ideas before we get to present them at universities and contests. At my school, we can also be mentors. Voluntarily, we help other students sometimes a week for their grades improvements. So it obviously helps us, both the student and the mentor, not only in an academical way, but also on a personal level, since the concepts of empathy, cooperation, collaboration, and trust are essential here. Besides all of this, we care about the unfortunate. So we organize every year several charity and solidarity events in which are included food collection and donation, and theater plays and concerts to raise money. In fact, this year, recently actually, we produced a film in order to raise awareness about the need of peace. So basically, we believe that we are the future of education. We think that we can change the school, we can transform the school, the region, the community, the country, and even the world. We, at the end of the day, we all make part of the big solution to this huge problem in front of us. So that's why I think we are the future, because we believe and we work in co-agency with our teachers and our community and everything that surrounds us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria, even though I'm just jealous because don't ask a selfie with me. But anyway, thank you very much. It was good to hear those good practices that you are doing in your country in changing the norms and also in engaging your government. It was good to hear from you all, and we have all realized from the discussion that it was about transforming curricula and fully engaging young people. And we all know that the only equalizer is education. So we have to transform education, and for that to be possible, we have to engage young people. Thank you all, our discussion speaker, and please, you can regain your seat. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that I like about panels like this is that they enable us to reflect. So I want you to sit there and reflect. Don't just listen. Reflect and ask yourself what you'll take back to your home country. One of the greatest things I'm hearing is that we need to include young people and children, especially the most marginalized. Children stuck in the justice system, children in refugee camps. I have interacted with these children and young people back in my home in Kakuma. So I'd like to thank our panelists today. Please, please, please give them a warm round of applause. Wonderful, wonderful. And so, I'm now pleased to welcome our next moderator, who is also a young person, energetic. His name is Ulysses Brengi. Ulysses, please come up. Ulysses is the SDG4 Youth Representative to the Transforming Education Summit, which is why we're here today, the Transforming Education Summit Advisory Committee. He will lead the discussion on improving youth participation in transforming education. Keep tweeting, #Transforming Education Summit.
Hello, yeah. Hi everyone, good morning, buenos dias. I hope you're having a great time. So we're gonna start improving youth participation in transforming education. So I will welcome our esteemed panel of speakers. First of all, His Excellency Mr. Dominic Cardy, Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development in Canada. His Excellency Mr. Marco Antonio Avila, Minister of Education from Chile. And His Excellency Mr. David Monina Senge, Minister of Education from Sierra Leone. And now I would also love to introduce our young peers, and I would expect way bigger applauses for them. Mr. Niall Deng from Canada and Ms. Mamawa Jaya. Woo! So we are missing one young leader? Not again. Okay, great. Ready to go? Okay. So I would like to start first with the ministers. Based on your experiences, what else or what more needs to be done to ensure meaningful youth engagement in education policy?
Thanks very much. So I'm not going to make any claims about being young, but 30 years ago, I was head of a party youth wing. And one of the messages that I remember really stuck with me from that time is that there was always that tendency to say that when you were young, you should be involved in youth activities, only in education. So one of the main things I want to say is that do not be restricted, that the world's problems are your problems. I just came here from Ukraine, where 2,000 schools have been destroyed. Those problems are your problems. Speaking up for peace, for justice, for racial equality, for gender equality, for the liberation of sexual minorities, those are all of our problems, old, young, regardless of where we come from. So, in Canada, we have got 13 provinces and territories and 13 ministers of education, which might be a good idea or a bad idea, but that's what we have. So I'm here from the Council of Ministers of Education in Canada, and what I think we need to do when we're talking about involving young people in the processes of changing education, as everyone else has spoken here today, is to listen. Because the real honor is not to be in this room. The honor is to be in the working class communities in my province, to be in the favelas, to be in the barrios, to be in the places where people live. And if we forget that, then we are failing in our main responsibilities, which is to be the voices for citizens, and to be the voices of genuine democracy. And when it comes to concrete tools, in my province, a small province in the east coast of Canada, we have a bilingual education system, and I'll take this opportunity, you don't have to put your translators on, to congratulate the Fédération des Jeunes Acadiens de Nouveau-Brunswick, a federation of young Acadians who have spoken out and pushed for their voice to be heard. They didn't ask to come to the table, they didn't wait for us to pull out the chair, they pushed open the door and sat down and said, this is what we need. And we've listened, because we've introduced, instead of appointed bodies in our governance structures in our school system, they're going to be elected, and they're going to be elected by students, and they're going to be sitting at the table with ministers and helping us make decisions based on the voices and the needs of youth. That is, to me, real engagement, not talking about young people, but letting them choose their voice and making that voice heard.
In conclusion, in French, because my province is the only bilingual province in Canada, when it was the honor for me to be the acting president of the body for young people, we ensured that young people were involved in all decision making, because that is true democracy, because we can't have democracy without the voice of young people.
Thank you so much, Minister. I would love the thing of owning the problems that are out there in the world. We tend to point other ways to other places, but we have to start owning the problems that we see every single day in Ukraine, in Canada, in our own cities, in our own places. So, Marco Antonio, go ahead.
Muy bien, buenos.
Good morning, everyone. For me, it's a pleasure to greet you. I'm going to speak in my mother tongue, Spanish. And I bring to you the greetings of my government, where our president, our current president, most of the ministers until 10 years ago were student leaders in the university world. They fought in the streets for free education, quality education in our country. So it's a government which believes in the participation of young people and the action of young people. We are convinced in our government that the major responsibility that schools and educational centers have for the participation of young people is crucial. We have spoken a great deal about the need for young people to participate. However, our appeal was to the adults to generate the necessary authorities and to create transformation in a democratic way. Schools very often reflect a rather traditional state, And it was difficult for us who are teachers, difficult for us to move forward in those spaces for democracy and to exercise our civic rights. And that's why we are convinced that the schools have to be the ones that generate those democratic spaces, spaces for participation, for coexistence, for critical thought, for skills and that are appropriate for the 21st century. So strengthening this democracy requires a very clear definition of the decision makers, the ministers of education, of course, generating governance within the institutions. And in our case, we have an educational council where students, families, teachers have the possibility to take decisions when it comes to the horizon that an institution would have. But this is still a very precarious exercise with today, the Advisory Council of the Ministry of Education that I lead is made up entirely of students. Before we had families as well, and now we're just having students on the council with the participation of parents as well. But for us, it's crucial for decision making. And secondly, what we've done is that the public education reform, which our country began 6 years ago and which we are going to strengthen and promote, there's also a body called the Local Council, where the families and the students can be involved in decision making when it comes to how schools go in their district and the educational projects that they get involved in. And lastly, we are promoting a law as well, a law that was somewhat overlooked, a law that creates a plan or the civic policy and human rights policy within schools where there's an obligation that the educational institution has a very definite space for participation. And we are sure that this participation of young people, especially thinking about strengthening social cohesion, democracy, this means that we have to be the adults have to be the ones that are leading the schools and educational projects. We have to generate the conditions for that participation to take place, to be compelling, and to be a true democratic exercise. Only in that way, given the fact that education is learned by participating, we're going to have adults who have to have clear convictions when it comes to protecting democracy. And of course, that would not mean falling into extremism, as we saw in many parts of the world. And that's a very unhealthy way of approaching democracy. We know that this democracy is fragile and we have to protect it. And to protect this democracy, we have to generate this participation today. I simply want to close by emphasizing the importance that in meetings such as this, we should be able to then transfer the exercise of educational policies in transforming the school curricula and above all in the change in the belief that certain teachers have. Sometimes we have been trained with a more traditional vision in a sort of very vertical logic, and so we have to change, all of us have to change our way of thinking so that we can make room for this participation that we all require. And this means as well that we have to rethink schools as a space for politicization, a space where you live democracy, where the problems of the population are the ones that allow us to learn. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
Especially saying that schools are the place to discuss and protect democracy, and also the key role of elected students representatives in governance structures. I would like to pass the floor to Minister Senge. We would like to hear from you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the young people who've been working really hard to put this amazing day together. I think it's important that we know that this is the time when it's not just enough to talk and to make commitments, and that we must follow those promises and those conversations with detailed actions. When I was in Paris for the pre-summit, I promised that I'll bring young people, and today we have young students from all over Sierra Leone who are with us in the room here. When I was at COP as well, I promised that we should set up a youth advisory group, and with Plan International, who's here, we've been able to set up a youth advisory group that is embedded within the ministry, and we'll put it into law that young people must be giving advice on all policy matters that affect education in Sierra Leone. It is also important that young people are not just invited into the room. They're not just sitting, they're not just given space at the table. They must be given a decision-making vote. It is important that young people must be resourced. It is important that the barriers that limit their full participation must be removed. And when we allow them to be part of not just the problem identification, but the problem solution, that is when we can truly transform our countries. Now, my team does not always like when I am given the mic on these global stages because I challenge them. So I'm going to challenge my team in Sierra Leone again to do something that they don't know that I was going to tell them. There are 12,000 schools in Sierra Leone, and each one of those schools have what we call board of governors and school management committees. I'm going to challenge them and all of us that those decision-making teams in those schools must have young people, and we must put it into law. These decisions and commitments that we make at opportunities and in rooms like this are not just for show. And we as leaders must ensure that the commitments that we make here with the young people must be followed through, and that we don't just say, we're waiting for you, you're welcome to the room, but that when you come, your vote does matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's not only about our voice. Sometimes we're tired of just being heard. We just want to actually vote and be part, and we are afraid sometimes of challenges, but those challenges make better solutions, more innovative and creative ideas. So thank you so much. And now I will go with my young peers. From your perspective, what good practices in involving youth in your country context could be replicated?
Thank you so much. My name is Niall Deng. I grew up in a refugee camp in Kenya called Kakuma. I now live in Canada. And first, I would just like to mention that it was so hard for me to get here. My US visa was denied 2 times. All my colleagues in the Refugee Education Council were denied visas as well, so I'm the only one in the council. And as Minister Senga just said, I think there's so many barriers that limit young people from participating in conferences like this, and I think visa is one of them. So I really hope that moving forward, that is something we address. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Mr. Senga, for those wonderful commitment. I think from my perspective, one thing that is very important is co-creation. I think there's so many different incredible ways young people are engaged in conversations and decision-making table, but I think these are only limited to committees and they're only limited to consultation. I think we need to move beyond those and actually see young people as partners, not just as beneficiaries. So we need to co-create solutions with young people, not to design solution first and then we ask for young people views on those solutions. It should start from the very first time we sit down and imagine what is happening in the world and try to come up with a solution. So I think co-creation is a very important thing, and that is one thing that I believe will help us in being able to imagine education. The other one, which is also very important, is inclusion. And I think when we sit here today, I hope we really see that inclusion should not just mean allowing a very small fraction of marginalized youth to access education, but it should include, it should means leaving no child behind. And as one of the youth activists says this morning about the number of refugee children who are left behind in accessing educational opportunities today, I live in Kakuma refugee camp for 11 years where education is very limited. So I really hope, in transform education, inclusion should be a main theme, and that should include, including young people in all their diversities, refugees, indigenous, LGBTQI youth, migrant youth, young people in all their diversity. No one should be left behind. And you know, when we talk about co-creation, you know, something that is very important that we did with the Refugee Education Council is that we work closely with Canada, not just as refugees, but as partners. So every single year we come up with a work plan that guide the minister work with us. And also when we work on Canada Together for Learning Summit this year, the Youth Council came up with the Youth Manifesto, which bring together young people voices, not just who are in the council, but young people who are out of the council. So I think it's very important that when we have young people in these committees, we should not just limit their participation to the committee, but we should give them an opportunity to go out and reach their peers so that they can bring together the voices of young people from everywhere. And then, you know, I think the other one, which is also very important, is moving away from just giving young people hope. You know, Minister Senga talked about, commitment that we make, you know, making sure that we realize this commitment. I think we have so many conversations about how we can find solution to problem in our world today. But as soon as we leave these spaces, you know, we go back to business as usual. If we're really serious about transforming education, I really hope that after this summit, we do not go back to business as usual. We walk the talk. That include making sure that commitment made here, you know, are realized to the fullest. And I believe all young people here today will hold you accountable. Accountability is one thing that is very important. And you know, in the Refugee Education Council Youth Manifesto, that is something we put at the front. You know, we ask Canada that we want to make sure that commitment we made today at the Together for Learning Summit are implemented in all, you know, to the fullest. And then, you know, something which is also very important is that, you know, young people participation in education should not just be limited to committees and youth council and consultation. I would like to urge all education ministers here today to have young people as part of their team. Please include young people as part of your team, not just as intern and youth council members, but as part of your team. Young people can be director of policy, they can be director of communication, they can be project managers, they can be, you know, policymakers. So let's ensure that we have young people as part of your team, and also young people can be ministers too of education and lead the wheel in transform education. So I really hope, you know, those are things we'll put into consideration as we move forward in transform education. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And that being said, we will expect your emails from the minister's team to join your teams and to be part of actually making the change. So we'll be expecting that. And last but certainly not least, does your microphone work?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I am Mama Ajayi, pupil of the Great Nyapui Senior Secondary School of Excellence, and also a member of the Youth Advisory Group and a representative from Sierra Leone. Before now, youths were being left out of decision making. They were prevented from taking active part and making decisions for their own futures. However, it is not enough to give young people the podium. Their suggestions must be truly and fully incorporated. For that, I say a very big thank you to our Honorable Minister, Dr. David Mwenina-Senge, who committed to bring on board the Youth Advisory Group. The Youth Advisory Group is a body set for young people to come and give out their voices and meaningful decisions into the MBSSC that leads to national development. I want you all to give an applause to our Honorable Minister for that. And one of the things, based on my own perspective, that I want leaders from all over the countries to replicate is that you need to establish a youth advisory group in your various countries. Youth advisory group is a platform that I think youth bring in sustainable change, meaningful innovation, skills, and ideas. And for that, I think you should establish a youth advisory group in your different countries. Another thing here, I may like other countries to replicate, in which my own country, Sierra Leone, is being involved in, is that radical inclusion. There is a policy called radical inclusion, which involves children all over the country, Sierra Leone, despite their vulnerability, despite their location, whether rural or urban, despite their social and economical well-being, they must be included into equality and equitable education. They must have access to that. And that is one of the things that my minister sitting beside me here implemented, and is still in progress. And for that, I want all countries, all leaders, and the whole world to implement that policy called radical inclusion. For a country to be transformed, these are some of the steps that need to be considered. Another thing here is my country, Sierra Leone, is one of the countries that I'm so proud of. Even sitting here now, I'm proud of that country, because the first man we call the president, which is His Excellency retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, engaged young people few weeks back, learners and young people, to know what are the challenges they go through, what are some lapses they go through in their communities and schools. And I think by doing that, a country is very, 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 very well developed. And I may like to tell you all, leaders from all over the world, to follow this path that my president of my country is doing. Learn to engage young people, learners, know the issues they are going through, know the challenges they are facing in their various communities and schools, so that you can have a solution in solving those problems. And another thing here also, I may want other country to replicate here is that youth policy. Youth policy is a policy that all youths, youth in so many countries that I know of, youths are being left behind. They don't take youth decisions into consideration. I want all countries all over the world. I am a youth, and on behalf of the Youth Advisory Group from Sierra Leone, I therefore plead with all leaders, all presidents, all ministers, and the whole world to please involve youth in meaningful decision-making. Youth have brimming minds. Please, don't leave youth behind, because they bring meaningful decisions on the table. Not including youth in decision-making in a nation is the biggest mistake a country should ever do. And I want to close this speech by please appealing to you all to give a very big applause to my tireless minister of basic and senior education, which is Dr. Devimwene Osenga. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such strong and powerful words. And I would like to thank the rest of the panel as well for sharing your experiences, your knowledge, and what could be brought to other countries. So thank you so much. A big round of applause, please. And I would like to leave the stage. For the last part of the okay. Well, a miscommunication issue. For the last part of the session, we're doing a fireside chat with, I would like to ask to join the stage, Her Excellency Ms. Joka Brandt, Permanent Representative of the Netherlands to the United Nations in New York, and Ms. Manal Musan, a youth leader also from the Netherlands. Well, welcome. I would like to ask first to Ms. Joka. We know the Netherlands have been very active in engaging with the UNSG, our common agenda, and its follow-up. How have you been championing youth engagement in the Netherlands?
Well, thanks very much for that, and it's great to be here with all of you, and it's especially great to be here together with Manal for this fire chat today. Yes, we've been very much involved, and to have a concrete answer to your question, one is through our national intervention by consulting youth before we actually do our interventions. But secondly also, and I think it's important in the context of the UN, we were asked to lead the start of this process to come up with a declaration on future generations. And here we made a really strong commitment to involve youth and youth organizations right from the start. So basically in two ways, by organizing a virtual consultation where they could all speak, and secondly by also giving the opportunity to provide written input. And I think what we've heard here a lot is what resonated with me, that it's not about giving a podium, it's not just about listening, but it's also about the willingness to then act upon what you've heard and listen to. And there's a couple of things that stood out, were really excellent comments. One was that there was a lot of focus by young people on the importance of intergenerational solidarity. Second was to take a much more longer-term vision, so to also look at future trends and already increase your knowledge about what the impact of these trends is going to be on young people. And three is that the interests of older and younger generations do not always align, and that is sometimes uncomfortable and challenging. And what it means for me, and I think we've heard that here as well, is that we cannot go on with business as usual. I mean, it requires a real transformation, and we cannot have transformation without youth, and we cannot have transformation without transformed education. Because people always say is, what is really important is the planet we leave behind for our young people and for future generations, but I think we should also turn it around. It's also very important, the young people and the future generations, that we leave to take care of the planet. And so if we don't invest in people that are actually already leaders now, we can see that and empower them, then we will not get to that transformation. And the reason that Manal is also here, I think, is because she's very good in explaining transformative ideas. So Manal, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Ambassador. Well, as a youth representative, I first of all really feel the privilege that I'm able to be here and speak on behalf of the youth that I spoke to, but I felt a very clear message coming from the Dutch youth. We want policies to have a more long-term vision, and what we also would like is to have policies that have an equal impact on all generations. So what we did, we took matters in our own hands, as we young people do a lot. We decided to build upon the idea that the Dutch Ministry of Interior already had. In the Netherlands, we have the Dutch National Generational Test, and my colleagues and I built further upon that idea. Because what we wanted, if we listen to the wish that young people have, is that we have a tool, an instrument that assesses policies before implementation, which means that you could actively watch out for having policies that treat different generations in an unequal manner. And what we also wanted is to have a tool or an instrument that focuses on current generations, but also on future generations. Because we believe that if we aim to focus on future generations, then we will automatically have policies that are future-proof. So we created the United Nations Generational Test, and it's a big initiative that we started. And it is the thing that we believe is a concrete example of how we want policies to be future-proof. So now that I'm here with you, I would like to ask you, Ms. Ambassador, what do you think of this initiative? What is your opinion?
Well, I really like it. I personally like these really concrete initiatives, and I think in itself it's already an example of how young people can improve on ideas, good ideas that governments may have, but that can always be further improved. And what I particularly like about this is that we're moving, because the idea was born because young people had found out that existing policies had a negative impact on young people. So what I really like about your addition is that we're moving from, basically repairing the damage to making sure the damage doesn't happen. Like prevention is always better than cure. And I think this is really important for young people. We're trying to do that now in the Netherlands as a kind of a pilot. So one area where I think it was piloted was with the education grant system. And obviously for all young people here in the room, you know how important that is. And we've heard that as well from others, how important it is, not just for young people, but for the whole of society to make sure that education is inclusive, accessible in an equitable way. So I think we can absolutely take this tool, this intergenerational tool, to the United Nations, and I think it's really good for young people to sort of push for that. Also, when we start talking about Summit of the Future and the Declaration for Future Generations, because I think it's just logical that also UN policies and programs do this intergenerational test again to make sure right from the start that A, the interests of young people are being taken into account, and B, that we know what the effects are going to be. So I'm all for it. So what are the next steps going to be?
Well, I think the next steps are partly in our hands, but also largely in the hands of you, because we believe that the UN and the UN bodies that are focused on education and focused on future-proofing policy should be the one to sit with us and think with us about how we could actively start implementing very concrete tools to actually achieve future-proof policies. So let this be an open invitation to all of you. And what we would really hope is that by the Summit of the Future in 2024, that we would have an active big youth campaign that is campaigning for the idea of the United Nations generational tests. And I'm definitely always here to inform all of you more about that. Thank you.
I would like to thank the two of you for sharing your experience coming from Netherlands, and everyone for this session. I hope you take notes of some of the ideas that all the panelists shared today. So thank you so much.
One of the most interesting things that has captivated me throughout this session is the emphasis on youth engagement through policy. Minister Senge, I'd just like to tell you that in Kenya, we have already done that. The New Children's Act in Kenya actually emphasizes that children should be included in all dialogues. So please, 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 come and take a benchmark in my hometown in Kenya. So now, I have the pleasure to introduce our next segment. Having heard from the previous speakers, thank you so much, Uli, for that team. The next section will be on intersectional areas for transforming education. And this segment will be held in the breakout rooms, which I will announce shortly, and you can choose which ones you want to go to. We want to invite everyone to join one of the sessions on the screen. But before I do that, I'd just like to challenge the young people here. There's a very famous quote that we keep saying back home in Nairobi. If they don't give us a seat at the table, we're going to bring our own folding chairs. Is that right? Will we? Will we do that? Okay. And if we don't have our own folding chairs, and there's no seat at the table, we're going to make one for ourselves. All right. So the parallel thematic sessions in the breakout rooms will be held as follows. The first breakout session will be on climate action for inclusive education. That's room CR12. The second one will be the breakout session 2, gender transformative education, room CR6. The breakout session 3 will be fostering student leadership through transformational teaching, room CR7. Breakout session 4, youth and education advocacy, room CR5. And lastly, breakout session 5, educate yourself about refugee youth, room CRA. Thank you so much for your active participation this morning, and we will see you later.